How did we get here, America? And I know how you got here. You clicked on the link. You go to the American Conference website. You go wherever you get your podcast, and you're listening to All American here from Studio A. But I mean 10 weeks down in the college football season. We're going into week 11 now as I'm alongside the great Maria Trivelpiece. I'm Kyle Youmans. So glad you're with us. It's crazy how quick we got here. It's been 10 weeks of college football, and how many questions do we still have left to be answered? And the answer to that is plenty.
I think I have more questions that need to be answered now than I did like last week, let alone like week one. Because like I feel like week one you have a million questions, and I thought I'd have a lot more answered. And then teams that are undefeated lose, and now everybody has a loss. And so now I have no idea how things are going to end up. So I have a lot of questions.
Let me ask you this. When it comes to your preseason bingo card in 2025, when you looked at the American Conference, how many teams did you have as a one-loss team whenever it got to week 11 of the season? Because as we take a look at the American Conference standings, there are 6 one-loss teams, Maria, that all have an opportunity to either host or play in the American Championship game coming up in a couple of weeks. It is bedlam from here on out, and a lot of these teams end up playing each other as well.
And I can't even, when I take a look at that, to answer your original question, it was not this many that I thought would have one loss coming into week 11, but when I look at them, I still don't know where we're going to be. Like, I feel like last year I was trying to sort of guess, and I was like, okay, like Tulane and Army were starting to make it more obvious at the end, and we're like, all right, it might be one of two places. Like, I genuinely don't know, because I would sit here, I would make a guess, and then something would happen, like UTSA beating an undefeated Tulane in the Alamo Dome, and I would be like, okay, I was wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know why I spend hours looking at all these notes, because that wasn't right.
Yeah. And I don't think anybody really saw that one coming. And, of course, the team that you see at the top of the schedule, or top of the standings, rather, are still the Navy midshipmen with 5 wins in conference play. They're the only team with 5 wins. But one of the teams with 4 wins is the North Texas Mean Green, and they secured that 4th win over Navy. 31-17, the final score. What a matchup this was on a Saturday morning. It was an 11 o'clock kick. You could tell that the environment was kind of slow rolling to get started. Not North Texas, though. They were not slow rolling. They get the ground game going early, and they took care of business in Denton.
Well, I think for me, ever since North Texas has lost to South Florida, they look like an even better team than they did going into that matchup. And I thought they were very good going into that game against the Bulls, but I think they have just a different sense of urgency when they're stepping on the field. And as you said, they got things going, that ground game. We're going to talk about Caleb Hawkins in just a little bit, but I think the difference for me in this game, which we knew it would be, is what defense played better, 1, and 2, who could play the cleanest football.
Yep.
And when you take a look at what those numbers were in terms of turnovers, in terms of just who was going to take care of the football better, it was North Texas, and that's who won the game.
I thought it would have been Navy if we were talking about that conversation. Navy is a team that does take care of the football. I mean, how many times have we talked about Blake Horvath and the weapons around him as the solidified core to that midshipman group? And, of course, they're going to run the football. We knew that was the case. But for North Texas to match the ground game, that was the most impressive part to me, because Navy still ended up with their rushing yards. They ran for, 300-plus yards in the game. They still ran the football effectively, which is exactly what you expect Navy to do. But for Caleb Hawkins, the freshman, to put up 197 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns in this game, count them, 4 of them things for Caleb Hawkins, that's the game changer. Because going into it, we mentioned it last week, North Texas, top passing offense, Navy, top rushing offense, and both defenses struggled at stopping that thing, that element. But for North Texas to take an element that Navy had been pretty decent at stopping in the past, and that's the ground game, and to amplify that the way that they did, huge credit to Eric Morris, huge credit to Caleb Hawkins, and then really a credit to the offensive line for North Texas. That's the best offensive line play they've had all season long, and they've had some pretty good offensive line play, but I've never seen Navy's front 7 pushed around like they were in the first half of that game. It was impressive. And the way that North Texas has responded after that initial primetime loss at against South Florida earlier in the season, they've won 3 straight, and they've arguably been 3 of the more complete games you've seen in the Eric Morris era. It's really scary what North Texas is doing right now.
Well, I think going back to what you said about the ground game, when you think North Texas, we know Caleb Hawkins has been successful this whole season,
Sure.
but the big thing that we always talk about is that air raid, like the way that they can throw the football. What Drew Mestamaker has done 608 passing yards the week before. And so for them to say, oh, we're going to switch it up a little bit, Navy's going to probably be preparing for that passing game. Let's show them we have this true freshman who can run the ball a little bit. And so a credit to North Texas for that, and also that North Texas defense. I think that was another key for me because they just look so physical. We talked about the way that Navy takes care of the football, but for them to cause the turnovers, I think that it's because of how physical they were and the pressure that they applied to Blake Horvath in that offense.
We mentioned it last week in the preview. What are the keys for Navy and for North Texas? One of the big keys for North Texas was take advantage of the Navy mistakes because they're not going to make a bunch of them. There's only a couple of opportunities per game because of how good Navy is and how solidified they are and experienced they are on the offensive side of the football that North Texas has to take advantage of it. And they did. The first turnover in the fumble in the first quarter was at the end of a 6-play, 58-yard drive where Navy was running the ball effectively. Then the interceptions in the second half turned into a touchdown, and then the other one into the game, respectfully, for the North Texas side. So they took care of business, and it's interesting to see Navy have the stumble that they did because out of all the things that I anticipated to happen, North Texas throwing the football, having some success on offense, Navy running the football over and over and over again and putting up 311 rushing yards, those things I could have seen happen. What I didn't see happening were the miscues from Navy's side, and I know for a fact they would want that one back if they could. And it may be a different story the next time around because they don't feel like they played their best brand of football in this one.
And I'm excited to see where the midshipmen go from this, right?
Yes.
Because we just talked about North Texas and the way they responded from that South Florida loss. Does Navy do the same thing with their loss? Now, we'll talk about Navy's upcoming opponent in just a bit, but let's talk about what lies ahead for North Texas because I think when you take a look at their remaining schedule, they have a really good opportunity to win out here.
It's an argument that I think you would win if you went up and said North Texas has the easiest path to an 11-1 season, maybe in college football. And that's no knock against UAB, Rice, and Temple. Those are the 3 games that they have remaining on their schedule. But they have a bye week this week after what was probably the toughest stretch in their regular season so far. South Florida, UTSA, Charlotte, Navy. They take care of business. They win 3 of those 4. And now they have a chance to rest up, get healthy, and then attack the final 3 weeks prior to possibly playing in the American Conference title game. But the other thing that's crazy about this is that there's a scenario where North Texas wins out. They go 11-1. And they don't make the American Conference title game. There's multiple options for them out there to happen. And so with all of that being said, I think you still have to keep in mind that their job is not done. And if you're North Texas, you can't look into this saying, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. We're going to make it into the American Conference Championship, and then we're going to turn around and be in the college football playoff. You just can't have that continue to be your mindset because I don't think it has been. I think they just have to take care of business on their own end.
And did you take care of business this week with your miles?
I definitely did. So Mean Green Miles, we started it last week on this show. For every point that North Texas puts up, it is 0.1 miles. So that means I had to go 3.1 miles.
That's a 5K?
Close to it. I think 5K is 3.2. 3.2. So close to a 5K.
Yeah.
But I did it. I got it done Monday morning. Got up early, was on the sunrise, and then made sure and took care of business on that one. So
all right. I'm proud of you for that.
It took me a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but
you got it done, though.
I did get it done.
It doesn't matter how quickly. You just need to get the miles in.
You guys aren't going to follow me around a golf cart outside
I mean,
of this
I'm
lake.
really hoping for you to slip up a little bit, maybe with your busy week of games coming up. It might be
this might be the week. If it's going to catch me, it might be this week. But certainly the point of emphasis on my end is I got to get those miles in. Mean Green Miles.
Mean Green Miles.
Week 2, got it done. got it done. I may carry this into next year if I like it.
All right, we'll see. All right, let's.
31's not as bad as it could have been too. North Texas has put up some points this year.
Yeah, it's better than the 50 burgers. Like you ran that, right? Yeah.
I did. I put up 5.4 miles on a treadmill. This one I did outside, but I could be in trouble against UAB and that defense, Rice and what they've done, and then Temple. That's going to be a high-scoring game.
That's going to be a high-scoring game back and forth. Yeah. I'm excited for that one. Last week of the season.
I do want to talk about Navy though, real quickly here. Their tough stretch continues. Of course, they go into non-conference play this week. They take on Notre Dame. Chance to rebound, but they've got to play better up front, right? That's kind of where I'm looking at it against a Notre Dame team that, of course, is one of the best fronts in football.
Well, I think that's the thing that you even just mentioned in that matchup against North Texas was playing better up front as well. And I think for me, the other thing that they need to do is I want to see them play cleaner football. We saw them make a couple mistakes not only against North Texas in terms of penalties and turnovers, but also that previous week against Florida Atlantic, and Brian Newberry even touched on that. So I think for me, it's not only that battle up front, it's just limiting the mistakes and taking care of the football. And I feel like I'm up here talking like coach speak right now, but it really does.
It's true, though.
It's the difference maker in those last two games. So those would be the keys for me against a really good Notre Dame team that, we talk about lurking. Some of the teams in our conference, I feel like Notre Dame's kind of like lurking because they have those two losses. People haven't talked about them as much, but they lost to two teams that are ranked incredibly high. I think Texas A&M is 3 the last time I checked, and they lost them by a point. So I think that it's a lurking team that could be scary good in a tough battle for the midshipmen.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, and they've got to have the rushing attack play at a high level like they have really all the way through the season, and then turn around and have a perfect day in their front seven is ultimately what's going to happen. And maybe they'll be motivated after the way that North Texas handled up front. But you're going to look back at the game last year that was 51-14. Navy didn't feel like they played their best in that matchup, and you showed it by winning 10 straight matches after that, seeing 10 straight matchups go in favor of you the rest of the way. Use that motivation to power a revelation on that front seven. Let's make it happen, Navy. That'll be a fun one this weekend, but you got to take care of business up front, or else you don't really stand a chance against what Notre Dame brings to the table. Let's talk about one of the biggest upsets we've seen throughout the season. And if you would have asked me prior to the year if this would have been an upset, I probably wouldn't have said it was as big of an upset as it ended up being. And it didn't look like it on the field whenever this one came down. How about UTSA? They were waiting for 2 seasons in the American before they finally found this type of performance, and they found it by taking down the Tulane Green Wave 48-26 in a beatdown at the Dome.
They're 24-0 in the regular season under Jeff Traylor in the Alamo Dome. So I think
in conference games.
In conference games. Thank you, because that would have been incorrect if I would have said it otherwise. But I think that when you talk about upsets, I am not as surprised because this game was in the Alamo Dome, and we talked about it going into it. And when you take a look at this matchup, Owen McCown played how we expected him to coming into this season. It's what we've been kind of waiting for. And it's funny because when we take a look at UTSA from last season, this is about the same time of year where they played some of their best football as well.
It was the same week that they beat Memphis last year. The same week. It was also week 10.
Yep. And so I think that, I'm sure Jeff Traylor would like to win games earlier in the season, but he told us that as much at Media Day and maybe throughout the couple of games that I've had of his. But I think that there's still some really good things this UTSA team can do. And the fact that they just dominated Tulane, especially offensively, I think it's a really good sign for the Roadrunners.
No doubt. And what was the key that we gave last week? It was get somebody else going other than Robert Henry Jr. You can go find it in last week's episode. I dare you. Go find it. I said it last week. And guess what they did? And guess how it turned out? They got Owen McCown going. They got all their wide receivers going. What a day that they had across the board from Devin McEwen and David Amador. Both of them had a day. Both of them had big-time plays. Owen McCown had probably his best complete passing performance of his entire career. 31 of 33 passing. You had 2 incompletions, Owen. That's insane. That's an incredible game. 370 passing yards and 4 touchdowns through the air. I've said it all season long. I think Owen McCown is a fantastic quarterback. I think he is a good quarterback and somebody you can build around. I was puzzled all year as we were watching them struggle on offense outside of Robert Henry Jr., and now you're finally starting to see it all click. And I think if you're a team that faces UTSA in the final month of the regular season, I'm looking at this and saying, they're clicking right when we don't need them to, and they were able to piece it all together. I think all of that to say the defense played better too. You had a couple of big-time plays. Once UTSA kind of strung together the offensive success, it looked like it bled over into the defensive side, and the Roadrunners played with a lot of confidence on that unit too.
Well, Tulane scored first, but then after that, it really didn't look like they could even get back into the game because UTSA just took control from that point forward. And I think exactly what you said, that offense was clicking, and then the defense came up with some big stops as well, just forcing a bunch of field goals as well. So I don't know.
They did have that key early turnover. I wrote it down in my notes, the way that Retzlaff and the Tulane offense kind of executed that script. Of course, teams, as you may know as a football fan, they script the first 15 plays most of the time, and their script went to perfection. They had that pull on the read option. He had a wide open running lane down the left hash mark and just took off for a big game and a big rush. Then they go down, they cap off the drive with a touchdown. From that point, it was like, okay, this game's going about what Tulane expected it to go. But instead, UTSA puts together a drive. They go down and equal it. And then a great play by Ahmad Chapman to have the fumble, to rip that football free. They recover. And then from that point, it was kind of floodgates open. And then what happened in the final 2 minutes of the second quarter, or 5 minutes, 6 minutes of the second quarter was phenomenal. I mean, we've always talked about dominating going into halftime. That's about as dominant as you could be, putting up those points, and it was a disaster for Tulane, and then they kind of salvaged a little bit of hope by scoring right before the break. But that into the second quarter is where it all went wrong for the Green Wave.
And so when you take a look at this, now you have, if you're UTSA, you have South Florida coming up, and it's 2 back-to-back Thursday games. How do you take on a team that's coming off a bye, that just lost to Memphis, and is hungry to get back on the field? Now, you have some momentum, too, with a dominating performance against one of the only undefeated teams in the American. So how do you foresee this one playing out? I guess that's kind of an open-ended question.
A little bit. I think the biggest thing here is you got to keep the same script, right? It's going to be tougher to execute because it's against, at least on paper, a better team. South Florida is better built right now than Tulane is, and we've seen that in the production and in the results that they've had. Tulane was kind of pitter-pattering, winning football games that were coming down to the wire and that against teams that they probably should have beaten by multiple scores. That's not the case for South Florida. They had one down day where Memphis comes back and beats them in the Liberty Bowl. Turn around and it's all a different conversation. So I think you still have to execute with their wide receivers, continue to see McEwen and Amador play well. They have so many talented tight ends. Owen McCown, as long as he's still efficient throwing the football, I think they'll have success. My number one thing, though, is they're going to have to dominate the line of scrimmage better than they even did against Tulane, and I think they did a great job against Tulane. You just got to take a step up because that's where this South Florida team wins, is in the trenches. Yeah. Got to win up front, and that allows everybody else to do their job. I think you keep those weapons rolling. Maybe your defense wins a couple of turnovers, a couple extra possessions. All of a sudden, I think we'll have another football game on our hands because I said it to start the year. I think I think UTSA is as talented as these upper echelon teams that are in the conference. We just haven't seen the performance to this point, and I think we saw one of those in Week 10.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. There's another team in Week 10 that we haven't talked about enough, but I got to witness it firsthand, and they also were taking some shots at their opponent.
Oof. This is petty. This is on that petty chart that you always talked about.
This is, we have to give credit to the social media teams. This is, again, another good one. East Carolina putting the Temple mascot on the Sixers injured list.
Yeah, and what about the Sixers catching some strays here? They're in the NBA. They just started their season.
I know. It's way too early to be taking shots at the Sixers. I mean, it, though. I love the pettiness, and I also loved the way that East Carolina played in this football game, Kyle, because I think that, they have the one loss to Tulane, and that one, we broke that game down. They were right in that as well, and I think that they had 16 days off from their last football football game, and they came out like they were as well rested as 16 days could make you. They just attacked this Temple team both offensively and defensively, and it was really fun to watch.
You remember, I think there was a show. I don't know what show it was. There was a show. It was a podcast. It was on YouTube. I think you could find it at the American Conference that talked about the big threat ability, the big play ability that East Carolina has with guys like Anthony Smith. I think you saw that again. Caden Hauser, what he did at the quarterback position. I don't remember what show it was, but you should go check it out if you haven't seen that one yet. Not me tooting my own horn for the second segment in a row, but
hey, you got to take credit where credit
Anthony
is due.
Smith is a big threat wide receiver. But how about the other Smith? It's Smith and Smith. Yannick Smith had a great day too. 5 catches, 100 yards. He had a couple touchdowns in the win as well. Temple did what they normally do. They forced turnovers, and they had a couple of those early on. But Evan Simon had an interception. Can we stop the presses? Evan Simon threw an interception
and
for the first time all year.
My mouth dropped on the side.
Did you? Yeah, that's right.
But
you were in the
also,
building.
if you go back and watch it, he full on dives to make the interception. It was a great play. It was a phenomenal play. So but again, that was his first one of the season, and it's week 10.
And it is week 10. That's an incredible stat. And Evan Simon, I'm going to talk about you a little bit later on. You don't force turnovers. That's okay. It's fine. You'll live to fight another day. You got to put it in the rearview mirror. However, Temple, it seemed like, did not put it in the rearview mirror. They were kind of off a little bit from that point. They were able to scratch and claw and erase the early deficit to make it 14-14 in the second quarter. But my goodness, when the Pirates started to break through, they broke through, scored on 5 consecutive possessions, pulled away from a 14-14 second quarter tie, and all of that point, I mean, they pulled out the fake punts. How about the fake punt call and the completion to the big man? That was awesome.
I love it. I feel like we've seen so many plays like that in the American this year, and it's really hard when I'm picking top plays. I'm like, man, can everybody throw the football now? What's going on right here? So
did this one make top plays?
No, it didn't. There's listen. There's another one, but to your point, I think that when you talk about Temple, they claw back, right?
Yeah.
But I think the thing for me with East Carolina was just they never let up, and it was so well balanced both offensively and defensively. Because you mentioned the run game, right? But Caden Hauser did what he always does in the way that he throws the football. I remember speaking with my producer post-game, we were trying to figure out who we're going to talk to. Yeah. And it's it's just so evenly distributed. Let's talk to Coach Harrell, because everybody else, everybody did their job. And then defensively too, I think that they put so much pressure on Evan Simon in that offense that I think that's why they made as many mistakes as you saw. And it was really interesting in the calls leading up to the game. Josh Aldridge, the defensive coordinator, was talking about his defensive line, and he said that there's so many guys on it who are very similar. There's nobody who's super NFL talent that you can't take out of the game, and because of that they're also evenly matched. That he can just rotate people crazy. Yeah. And it just wears down offenses, and I think that's what you saw against Temple. Yeah,
like I said, they pulled out the fake punt calls, the big plays on the ground. They had all sorts of domination. They kind of took care of business all the way through. They've got a matchup this week with Charlotte. It's a rivalry game. It's something that I know Charlotte fans are excited about. I don't know about East Carolina fans. We've talked about this rivalry before on the show. Charlotte has won games in this rivalry recently. So with all that being said, East Carolina cannot sleepwalk through this. Of course, with a desperate Charlotte team, we saw them really challenge North Texas, one of the better teams in the conference, in the first half of their game a couple weeks back. What do you expect to see out of this matchup in Week 11?
I think with a rivalry game, it doesn't matter what the records are. You have to show up and play. And I think that both teams will, and I don't think East Carolina looks at Charlotte's record and takes this lightly. They are positioning themselves to also be in that American Conference Championship race. You can't just look past Charlotte to your next game. So I think that it's two schools close together. I anticipate East Carolina to come out with the same intensity and excitement that they had against Temple, because I think that they're finally back in a rhythm. They had off so many days. And I feel like Charlotte wants to play spoiler to anybody they can, especially their rivals. So
Yeah.
I think that it's going to be a fun matchup. I think it's going to be exciting. I think there's going to be maybe a little bit of chippiness, but that's what's fun in college
Maybe
football.
a little trap game.
Maybe a little bit, yeah.
Maybe. I mean,
Yeah.
East Carolina does play Memphis next week.
Right.
So, like you said, you can't look ahead. And I think this game's ultimately going to look kind of like what that North Texas game looked like a couple weeks back. Drew Mestermaker breaks a conference record for 608 passing yards in a single game. It may not be that for Caden Hauser, but the big play is going to be there. They're going to strike for a lot of yardage. They're going to put up a bunch of points. It's whether or not Charlotte can keep pace with that all the way through all four quarters. I think they'll keep it close early. East Carolina has the depth, as you just talked about, that can just continue to rotate, and they have the quarterback to lead the charge too. So, of course, the Pirates have the advantage, but don't be surprised if Charlotte keeps that a lot closer than we anticipated. Moving on to Memphis and Rice, this one was not close. Memphis took care of business, 38-14 the final score. And I don't know if it's just me, but it looks like Memphis, ever since losing to UAB, has just played angry. Like they look locked in, they look focused. They feel like they didn't play their best against UAB, but now they're getting back to doing what they do well, which is run the ball, play solid defense, and allow their playmakers to make plays, whether that's the running backs, whether that's your quarterback in Brennan Smith or Brennan Lewis. I think any of that can be in play. Memphis is getting back to doing what they're doing.
I think sometimes, unfortunately, you need a little bit of a wake-up call. And I don't even think – it's interesting because I don't think Memphis took UAB lightly. I think that UAB just played really well in that game.
Agreed.
And I think Memphis didn't execute towards the end of the game. And so I think that it wakes you up a little bit, and you have this chip that you never are going to allow that to happen again. And I think for Memphis, I think angry is the best word to describe it. Like they're not lurking. They're not lurking. They're angry. Like they are angry. They are not lurking behind anything. They are beyond on the prowl. Like they are like teeth into whatever opponent.
I love this metaphor. Let's go, Maria.
We're just furthering the metaphor. But teeth and claws sunk into every teeth. I can't don't ever do that again.
Rawr.
And he does it again. Anyway, angry Memphis on a mission. They're mad they lost to UAB, and God bless anybody who has to play them in the next couple of weeks. How about that? Let's end the metaphor there.
Exactly, and of course they've got East Carolina next week. They've got some really good opponents coming up with Tulane this week, East Carolina, and then Navy. I mean, Memphis, we'll talk about it here in a minute, but they've got some tests coming up. I really liked the way that Lewis opened the scoring with that emphatic 18-yard touchdown run where he's spinning off of one defender, then he's breaking another tackle of another defender, then he gets sandwiched in between a couple of guys and he drags them into the end zone. It was a pretty good microcosm of, oh my gosh, this guy means business, and he did that all the way through that touchdown run. It kind of helped set the tone for what Memphis was going to do. He ended up with just 4 incompletions. I was talking about Owen McCown earlier with 2. Well, Brennan Lewis wasn't that far off with 4. 18 for 22. He went 225 yards through the air. Didn't have a touchdown throwing the ball, but of course he ran into the end zone as well. So I think defensively, I was impressed with the way that the Tigers were able to handle the option. First kind of option attack that they've faced throughout the season, held the Rice Owls to a season low in total yards and in rushing yards, 212 total, 112 on the ground. They were averaging 226 on the ground coming into this game, so they're held 115 yards under their season average whenever it boils down to it. That means you're doing something right. And then we talked about the ground game and having a dominant ground game. We talked about DeWosier all season long, and he's an incredible player. But how about Frank Passant?
Right?
Frank Passant running the ball. There's no I mean, of course, they're number 22 in the AP Top 25 because he was wearing 22 like old Emmitt Smith back in the day, breaking tackles, running over people, doing everything there too. He had the 2 first-half touchdowns, built a 31-7 halftime lead, and it was pretty much over by that point. Passant ended up with 3 touchdowns on the day. Actually, he had all 3 of them in the first half, and he had 3 coming into the game. So give them a little bit of credit, and I got to make sure I get my stats right.
Yeah, well, I think you got him right now. You're all good to go.
3 touchdowns coming into the game, and he had 3 in the first half.
They actually mentioned on the broadcast it was pretty cool. Yeah. So,
yeah.
but
it's Ted Emmert. That's why.
I know.
That's
Elite,
my guy,
right?
Go Mean Green.
But. No, I forget where we were. We were talking about Ted.
We're talking about Frank Passant.
Oh, yeah.
In the running game for Memphis and how good they are.
And how
running
good they
football.
were and how they're in the driver's seat to possibly host the conference title if they can continue to win the games. And they have a tough schedule coming up, though.
Yeah, so this is the part where I'd said I would talk about it because they do control their own destiny. As long as they win out, they hold the tiebreaker over South Florida, who then in turn holds the tiebreaker over North Texas right now. Out of those 3 teams at the top, and remember, if Memphis wins out, then Tulane is knocked from the ranks of the 1-loss teams. ECU is knocked from the ranks of the 1-loss teams, and Navy is lost from the ranks of the 1-loss teams. So as long as Memphis wins out, then those are the 3 teams out of the 6 that could possibly be in the conference title game, and Memphis would be in. And they hold the tiebreaker, which would then be enough to host. Now, it would be interesting if South Florida loses again. And then what would be the conversation in terms of rankings from North Texas and Memphis? Right. It's given to the higher-ranked team, which right now is Memphis. North Texas not far behind, and they don't have a bigger schedule, so I would anticipate it would be the Tigers of Memphis that would be the team that would host. So they really do control their own destiny, but back to back to round it out against 3 teams that have just the 1 loss in the conference slate so far. Tulane this week, East Carolina next week. Then they have that gritty Navy squad at the end of it all. I don't think Memphis can count their chickens right now. I don't think they can put it all in the bank and say, hey, be sure to book your tickets to Memphis for the conference title game quite yet. But they, of course, have the team talented enough to do so and to win those games. It's going to get real interesting down the stretch.
Yeah, let's talk about that matchup against Tulane because I think that is the first step of getting to that conference championship game because it's a Tulane team that's coming off a game that they were expected to win. And so now they have that. Maybe they have some of that anger that we just talked about Memphis having, and they're going to go back and look at that UTSA game and figure out, all right, where did we go wrong and how do we fix that against a very good Memphis team?
There's a saying on social media, especially college football social media, where it's fraudulent. Are teams real or are they fraudulent? And I'm not going to put that label on Tulane quite yet, but they have a chance to prove that they are real this week. Let's just say that. Because even if they lose to Memphis, I'm not going to sit here and say, Tulane's fraudulent. That's not the case. They're still
Memphis is a very good football team.
Memphis is a really good football team. And UTSA, as I said earlier, I was just hyping them up and saying I expected them to be better than they have been. Same thing with Tulane. I expect them to be a good team when it's all said and done. And I've talked to Jake Retzlaff on this show before. I've talked about their weapons across the board. This is their shot to prove that they are real. And I hate to keep bringing up these close wins because they were still wins. And I hate bringing it up, but you haven't, if you're Tulane, you haven't looked at your schedule since, let me see, what was the last time you really felt confident in a win? I'm still looking. Maybe Northwestern, the opener? You beat South Alabama by 2, and South Alabama hasn't had a phenomenal year. You beat
I think the Duke wins a good
That's
win.
A big one.
Yeah, because they've been doing better than
people anticipated.
Yeah, but that I thought.
Yeah, like I would probably say the Duke win's probably your best win, but you didn't play well against Ole Miss. You kind of stumbled early against Tulsa, but took care of business late. And then you pulled it out late against East Carolina, took a miracle to beat Army, and then you get blown out at the Alamodome by UTSA. So we're talking about since week 1 or 3 of the season that you've looked at this Tulane team and said, yes, that's the Tulane team we anticipated. So I think there's a challenge on the docket for Coach Summerall and company because they have to be better than they have been playing, and I think he would say the exact same thing.
And I think the frustrating part for him probably is they have all the pieces to be better. Like Jake Retzlaff's a very good quarterback. I think John Summerall's a really good coach. The last few years we've talked about the Tulane defense, and so I think that if you look on paper, they should be real. I think they are real. I think they just
only
need to
have
put
one conference loss, right?
Yeah,
they've had power wins and things like that.
Right. I just think they need to put the pieces together.
I agree. that's where I'm saying, like, I know everybody's going to say fraudulent if they lose 2 straight.
Right.
Don't do that. I don't think Tulane is that football team. Plus, they've got Florida Atlantic, Temple, and Charlotte down the stretch. I mean, if they get over this Memphis hurdle, everything's still in front of Tulane. Yep. Everything is right there, because then that knocks Memphis out. Then you're talking about tiebreakers against South Florida and some of these other squads.
Hurt my head. Oh my
I know.
goodness.
We're getting into this.
We're gonna have a lot of fun graphics
with
in the coming weeks.
6 one-loss teams. It's going to be every single week.
You gotta love it.
But that's the point, is they still have everything left in front of them despite what happened against UTSA. So with all of that, take care of business against Memphis. You're right back on track, and I think that's got to be the message with the Green Wave this week. We'll see what happens with Army in a matchup for the Commander-in-Chief Trophy to make sure that Army-Navy is the game that's going to decide who holds on to that trophy this year. They got it done, but boy, was this a fun, physical, Commander-in-Chief style trophy game that we've seen. Army takes down Air Force 20-17 in their first trip to Air Force at Falcon Stadium since 2019.
A game-winning field goal, and I think you said it perfectly. The physicality of this game, and we don't, and it's not a surprise at all. But I feel like it just means a little bit more when they're playing in these games. It doesn't matter what the records are of the teams. Like when Army Air Force, Army Navy, when those Navy Air Force, those matchups are so exciting to watch. And I think this one was the same way. There was so much physicality, and it's who's going
even before the game. Did you see the pushing and shoving in the tunnel?
I didn't even see that.
Oh yeah,
no.
There was a scuffle in the tunnel.
Oh, I love that.
Coming down the
Talking
same
about
side.
that's not even pettiness. That's just like
downright rivalry.
I love it.
And that's from the service academies. Those are like the most disciplined individuals in all of college football, and they're like, forget that. We're going and pushing and shoving wherever we can.
But I think for me, this was such a good win for Army, not only because it sets them up to still win the Commander-in-Chief's trophy when they play that Army-Navy game in December, but I think that this has been a season for Army where they just had one of their best seasons in program history last year, right? And they're trying to figure out who's going to come in to replace Bryson Daly. How are they going to get back to the success that they had last year? And it's been up and down a little bit. Yeah. And so I think this was a really good morale booster to kind of propel them through the last couple of games of the season.
Absolutely. And I think the defense showed that they can still be dominant when they need them to be. I know the second half got a little dicey there for a little bit, and Air Force was able to move the football. But when you're able to force multiple takeaways and multiple turnovers like Army did last year, and you're able to do that again this year, then all of a sudden I think your confidence level does change, and I think it does flip a little bit. I thought the Caleb Hawkins touchdown throw early in the game was one of his best throws of the year.
Yep.
He put it over the top, and there was, I don't know what Air Force was doing from the safety position, but it was a wide open look. Noah Short just got behind the defense, and Hellums put it on the money, 40 yards for the score. That was really the only chunk of success that Army had offensively until the fourth quarter. And Air Force is one of the top rushing attacks in all of college football. They've taken care of the football, kind of like what we talked about with Navy previously. So for the Army defense to hold that game in check as long as they did, I think that's the number one thing that you're going to look at about this matchup and say, if that doesn't happen, if the defense doesn't play the way that they did, I don't know if they win that game, because I think Air Force probably scores on a couple of those red zone trips, probably scores on a couple of those drives. And we're talking about a 2 or 3 score deficit, but your defense made the big plays when they needed to the most.
And I think these games come down to the defense more often than not, because the offense that is usually so unique that teams usually struggle with, you're playing that in practice almost every day.
You see it every day.
Yeah, so I think that's what makes this even more exciting because – no, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, to that point, when the defense kept you in check, and the defense did what they did all game long, for the Army offense to start the fourth quarter with a 13-play, 80-yard drive, and it took 8 minutes. I've got the 13-play, 70-yard drive. It took 8 minutes off the clock. All of that to say, like, that was back to Army football, and they ended up scoring to take the lead, and they were up 17-10. Now, that lead did go away. It was 17-17, and it took the game-winning field goal to get it back anyways. However, I think that was a moment for the offense to say, hey, we got your back, defense. We're gonna do what we need to do in order to set you up for success too.
Complementary football, and Army will need that against a Temple team that's coming off that loss to East Carolina, and this is going to be a fun one. I feel like I say that about a lot of our games, but I think I want to see, can Army continue with their success, and how does Temple rebound after a loss?
I don't know how to feel about this game. I've watched a lot of these teams, and I watch a lot of film, as you know. I don't know. I really don't. Yeah. And I'm paid to know things. Like I'm supposed to have answers up here to portray to American Conference fans. And I'm telling you right now, this is about as much of a toss-up of a game as you'll see in the American Conference this year, because you look at what Army does well, and that's run the football, bleed clock, put together 10, 13, 15 play drives, and take up half of the quarter. Whereas on the other side, what Evan Simon and company do is they take care of the football. They strike for the big play. They have the passing attack that all kind of plays together. Whenever it boils down to it, I think the key for Army is force a couple turnovers and to win more possession for your offense so they can drain clock and they can move the ball. But Temple doesn't turn
they take care of the football better than anybody else.
Yes.
It's so interesting. And I've done, I guess, 3 Temple games at this point. And one thing that defensive coordinators are always like talking about with Temple is the way that they take care of the football, but also how the way that they run their offense almost mimics sometimes like an option. So it's like really interesting when you're preparing for it. It's not. So does the Army defense, like these are the questions I have in my head. Does the Army defense play better against that because they see it all the time in practice, and maybe they do force a couple more turnovers, but it's not an option because they play Temple offense and the way that they pass, and they have like the short completions until they get the big play and they take care of the football. So I'm just like, those are my questions that I'm asking in my head.
Yeah, even going back to last year's game, I mean, they still didn't throw the ball a ton. Army didn't. I mean, Bryson Daly had 54 passing yards last year in this game. They won 42-14. It wasn't really a close game. I think in order to have success against Temple this week, you're going to have to throw the football around a little bit, because Temple flies to the football. They force turnovers. They get after you, and you can't make mistakes as well. So I really do. I think this is a tough matchup for Army. And if you're Temple on the other side, it's also a little bit of desperation. You've had this revelation of a year where you're winning games, you're putting up points, you're taking care of the football. And then you're sitting at 5 wins. Yeah. You're at 5-4 right now. You're 3-2 in the American Conference. And then you turn around after your bye week and you've got Tulane and North Texas. Yeah. So in order to make a bowl game, you kind of need this one to at least ensure it, lock it up. Don't worry about having to pull an upset against 2 of the top teams in the conference in the final 2 weeks of the regular season against a Tulane team that either will be in the conference championship picture or will have just been outside of it, or North Texas, who might be in the conference championship and college football playoff picture. Yeah. You got to take care of this one. If you're going to take care of it, this is the one. And I think there's a matchup there that does favor Temple when it all does boil down to it. All right. Couple games to preview here from teams that were either not in action last week or that we didn't talk about already in the show. Let's talk about Tulsa and Florida Atlantic. I like this matchup. I think this is a lot of fun too. 2 of the younger coaches in all of FBS action, teams that are trying to piece things together. I've dubbed this the Momentum Bowl.
Ooh, okay. Let me hear your reasoning why.
I'm going to call this the Momentum Bowl because I really do think both teams have done some things right throughout. Right.
I'll agree with you.
First-year head coaches, they've done some things right. Of course, Tulsa's been close a couple of times in conference play, but they haven't gotten that win yet. Florida Atlantic has been close, but hasn't gotten that win yet either. I think both teams have solid quarterback play. I like Baylor Hayes from Tulsa. I like Caden Veldkamp from FAU. I think both of these teams can throw the football around. One of them is going to end up with a momentum-building conference win that they can kind of hang their hat on into the final month of the regular season and possibly into the offseason if you're one of these 2 teams. So that's why I'm calling it the Momentum Bowl, because you're going to see a lot of big plays. You're going to see a lot of scenarios where you're going to have to carry momentum not only in the game But outside of the game, as your season continues in year one with a new head coach.
I like the Momentum Bowl idea. I might have to use that on the broadcast. I'll give you credit, though, for it. But I agree with you in the sense of that both these teams want to carry that momentum into this later part of the season. And I think for me, I've liked watching some of the things that these teams do. I love their offenses. That's probably my favorite part, watching both Tulsa and Florida Atlantic. And I think Florida Atlantic I like because of the way that Zach Kitley's not afraid to just throw the football. He has Caden Feldkamp, and he can really air it out. And I think on the Tulsa side, I think Trey Lamb is so creative in the way that he calls plays. Like, there's just so many different options. He has different people coming in and out. I really liked his decision to go for 2 against Temple in overtime. It didn't pan out, but I liked the chance that he took. Yeah, and I think he has Brody Foley, who's really come on as well. So I'm excited to see how this one goes. I think for me, with 2 offenses that have done a lot of things right, I think it's going to come down to which defense makes the least amount of mistakes.
And I think Florida Atlantic, out of their defensive system and what they brought to the table, probably the team that will make the fewest mistakes. However, I think Tulsa's system, Tulsa's team, of course, we've talked about some of their playmakers in the secondary. I think they'll give the Golden Hurricanes some extra opportunities because Florida Atlantic will turn the football over. It's plain and simple. Like they'll give up a couple of big-time options there. But I really do think when this defense of Tulsa plays at a high level, that's when they're going to make a run for this thing. Now, I look at both of these teams. I'm going to give a key to the game, and because they're so similar, my keys are the exact same for both sides.
Okay, let's hear it.
Tulsa, you got to strike early. Start fast, start strong. The games that they've been in, Navy, Temple, Oklahoma State, they've all scored on either their first or their second possessions, and they've been in the game going into the second quarter. So strike fast, strike early. If you're FAU, strike early. Get going early because over their last 5 games, they have scored on their last 5 opening possessions. However, I'm going to add a little caveat to this for Florida Atlantic. You got to strike early without giving up a score on the opposite side. Because plain and simple, you've scored on your last 5 opening possessions, but you've also allowed a score on 4 of your last 5 opening possessions. I think all of that to say you got to be better whenever it comes to slowing down that possession. And if you're able to do that, then I think you've actually got a shot in this game. Of course, the game that they ended up forcing a stop out of the 4 out of 5, right? The one game they ended up forcing a stop, they ended up winning, and that was against UAB.
Okay.
So
strike early with the caveat for Florida Atlantic.
That's the case.
Ready for our next preview?
Let's do it.
We got UAB and Rice. So we have 2 teams trying to bounce back from some rough losses, but we can take a look at this one. What are you looking forward to?
I've got another bowl title for this one.
Oh, you got another bowl title? I guess I should read your notes.
Theme this week.
Okay.
This is the What's Next Bowl. This is both teams that have had some key wins throughout the season. Of course, UAB taking down Memphis. We've talked about Rice and the way that they've really grown this year under Coach Abel and company. They still haven't put together the consistency. So they're asking the same question that we are. What's next? Is it going to be a phenomenal outing from UAB where they put up points like they did against Memphis, and that defense is so stingy against the Memphis Tigers, but then you just can't get a stop against anybody else? Or is it going to be Rice where what's next? Are they going to run the football effectively like they've done for much of the season, but you can't throw the ball enough to keep a defense off balance and keep them on their heels? So all of that to say, I think this is the What's Next Bowl because they're going to match up well. Both of these teams even out pretty solidly. Air raid attack, and something that you're going to see from UAB is a lot of passing. No matter who's at quarterback, find out who is at quarterback. That's my number one thing too. But then if you're Rice, they're going to run the football, so it's going to be a clash of styles, and I'm excited to see how it turns out.
The What's Next Bowl.
The What's Next Bowl.
I love it.
You got the Momentum Bowl, and you got the What's Next Bowl.
And that's all on our big schedule of games because there's 14 teams in action this week.
Is it all 14?
14 teams in action.
Well, no, North Texas is off this week.
So we're down one. We're down one. So
there's a bunch of teams in action.
There's a lot of teams playing in the American this week.
Here's what they all look like whenever it boils down to it. What game are you going to be at this week?
Florida Atlantic Tulsa, the Momentum Bowl.
The Momentum Bowl.
I'm at the Momentum Bowl, but there's more games besides the Momentum Bowl.
That could be a lot of fun. I like. Are you actually going to use that on the broadcast?
Are you going to provide me with a trophy to give the winning team?
No.
Okay,
not.
then probably not.
That would be fun, though. I would commission one if I could. I think UTSA and South Florida is an interesting matchup there. Tulane and Memphis. That's a juggernaut game. And currently Memphis favored in that matchup, as they probably should be. But like we talked about there, I think that's something that could be a conversation. Then how about Navy and Notre Dame? Little out-of-conference slate this week for that one. I can't wait for that one as well.
The us versus them is back. The American versus them. So
is this the last one? No, I think UConn plays one more American team later in the year.
UConn plays a lot of American teams. I just lose track. But at least we have all of our notes done for when we preview.
And we talked about it earlier. I want you to keep an eye on that Charlotte and East Carolina game. I want you to keep an eye on that one because Caton Hauser and company, East Carolina, they're just sitting there underneath. They got one loss to their total. They got some big games coming up, but don't sleep on what East Carolina can do. I think the Pirates are definitely for real. With all of that being said, let's get into a little bit of some top plays. Maria, Trivelpiece, you ready for some top plays for this one?
Let's do it. Are you starting or am I starting?
You know what? I want you to start it off.
All right, let's do it. Starting with number 5. How about with some women's soccer? This is Tulsa and Rice, two teams who would compete eventually in the American Conference Championship. That was Maggie Sim-Smith.
Wow.
How far away was she when she shot that?
I mean, that's probably, 20, 25 yards? That's nothing crazy, right? That's only like trying to put a – oh, no. I can't even, joke around about it. That was an incredible what about – what are you going to do to try and stop that?
Nothing.
I know the goalkeeper can't do anything.
There's nothing
there.
she can do. It was just so much speed and strength coming off that ball.
Oh.
Good job, Maggie Sim-Smith.
That was really nicely done. Very nice. Let's go to the football field for this one. How about UAB? Ryder Burton, the lateral keeps it alive for UAB, and then the speed does the rest. Brandon Hawkins Jr. saying, you thought you might have had me on the first try, maybe the second try, maybe the third try, but at the end of the day, I've got you. And he takes it all the way to the end zone. Of course, it was in a losing effort, but my goodness, what an individual effort it was from UAB on this one.
He just kept going and going and said, hey, I'm going to score a touchdown on this play. And he did. So
you think that's what he said?
I think that's exactly what he said. I actually mic'd him up in the game and listened to him say it.
Got it.
Yeah,
Very nice. You were thinking ahead on that one.
Yeah,
Very good.
absolutely. I knew
you
that
knew
was going to happen.
This was going to happen. A little lateral action.
For sure.
Not a shovel pass because he was behind the line of scrimmage. It was a lateral.
It was a lateral. Let's take a look at another fun football play, but not the kind of football that you're thinking of.
Wow.
That was for the win.
What?
Eventually for the win. There's a couple seconds left on the clock.
Oh, yeah. This is the final match of the season for South Florida. If they lost, they had to have UAB, which ended up winning anyways, over North Texas in that day. So this was a clincher to get into the American Conference Tournament.
Yep. Gentiana Fatai is the one who scored that goal.
Wow.
You got to love it.
That's a beautiful look. How cool was that? All right, moving on to number 2. Back to the gridiron we go. Brendan Sullivan, Jake Retzloff played quarterback for Tulane in this game against UTSA. But how about the wide receiver, Jimmy Callaway, finding Amari Haynes coming up with the catch in the back of the end zone. Tulane struggled at different times to get the offense rolling, but they got it rolling here with the wide receiver pass. UTSA actually did the same thing on their end too, but this one was a little fancier.
I know there was a couple weeks ago where there were 2 wide receiver passes in a weekend, and I clipped them together. And I thought about doing that for this weekend, but I was like, that's a little cliche. So I thought this one was insane because
Also,
he just
that's
launches.
a dime.
Yeah, he just launches it.
Yeah.
And I think the funny part, if you watch the beginning of this, he kind of like looks like, am I going to give it back to the quarterback?
Right
and
there,
yeah.
He kind of like looks. You're right. He flips his shoulder a little bit and then drops it in a bucket.
Yeah, he's like, no, I guess I'll take it.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, my bad. I'll just release this one, take it all the way through. All right. What's number one?
Number one, we're going to talk about some defense. We talked about this game, Navy and North Texas. I think you'll like this one, being a Mean Green alum. Quentin Hammond's one-handed interception. How about that?
Give that man the Stone Cold Steve Austin water cans or whatever they're using for that on the sideline. Give it to him. Give him the belt. How about this? Whoop! Get up there one-handed. No, sirree. What a game by the North Texas defense, forcing multiple turnovers, taking Navy out of their game plan, and taking care of business. 31-17, the final from Denton.
What a fun top play to end with.
And what a fun week.
Oh, my goodness. And this week's going to be even more exciting, I think. I'm calling it right now.
You're making the call.
I'm making a call right now. Maybe Navy upsets Notre Dame.
Ooh.
Maybe, I don't know what's going to happen in those weeknight games. I love when we have weeknight games because I could just watch football.
You've got American Conference football all the way through.
Yeah.
Bang, bang, bang.
I love it. You love
Thursday,
to see it.
Friday, Saturday for the most part, but that's the case. I'm excited about this. You got 6 one-loss teams. Never really know what's going to happen from here on out, and we're going to be here to break it down for you one way or the other as we continue trudging on through the American Conference regular season. And by the way, hoops is back this week. We're not going to talk hoops for a couple of weeks at least, but it's back.
It's back, baby.
It's back, and we'll be back next week with more All-American. For Maria Trivelpiece and our entire American crew, I'm Kyle Youmans saying so long. We'll see you next week. Like, subscribe, follow. We'll see you then.